Taeyang stood in the great council chamber, watching light from the neutron star dance across the curved walls. He had walked these halls for 15 years, shaking hands with creatures from 1,000 worlds. Today felt different. The air tasted wrong. The chamber held representatives from 847 species. Some breathed oxygen like humans. Others floated in tanks of liquid methane. A few existed as pure energy, their voices transmitted through speakers. Taeyang had learned to read them all. Right now, none would meet his eyes. Counselor Thex clicked his mandibles together. The insect-like alien had been humanity's sponsor since first contact. Taeyang trusted him like a brother. Thex had promised humanity a place among the stars. He had promised protection. He had promised friendship. Those promises were about to shatter. Thex spoke, his voice translated into smooth human language by the chamber's systems. The words came out calm and cold. Humanity was being redesignated as a controlled development species. All colonization rights beyond the Sol system were revoked immediately. All military vessels larger than small patrol craft would be confiscated. Council oversight stations would be placed in Earth's orbit within 30 days. The reason? Humanity grew too fast. Humanity built too many ships. Humanity asked too many questions. The Council had voted in secret. The decision was final. Taeyang felt the floor tilt beneath his feet. 37 years. That's how long humans had been part of the galactic community. 37 years of careful diplomacy, of following every rule, of proving humanity deserved its place. All of it meant nothing. He tried to speak. His voice cracked. He cleared his throat and tried again. His words echoed in the vast chamber. He talked about treaties, about promises, about the trust humanity had placed in the Council. He reminded them that humans had fought beside Council forces against pirates, that human scientists had shared their discoveries freely, that Earth had opened its doors to alien visitors without hesitation. The Council listened in silence. When Taeyang finished, Thex simply nodded. The vote stood. Humanity had 30 days to comply. Taeyang left the chamber. His hand shook. In 15 years of service, he had never felt so small. Back on Earth, Admiral Bora received the transmission in her office aboard the HSS Seoul. The flagship hung in geosynchronous orbit above the Korean peninsula. Through her window, Earth looked peaceful. Blue oceans, white clouds, continents glowing with city lights. Beautiful and fragile. She read Taeyang's report 3 times. Then she smiled. It was not a happy smile. Bora had spent her entire career preparing for this moment. She had told the politicians. She had warned the diplomats. Nobody wanted to believe that their alien friends might betray them. They called her paranoid. They said she saw enemies everywhere. They were wrong. She saw the truth. She opened a secure channel to her senior officers. Within minutes, orders went out across the human defense fleet. Training exercises were scheduled. Ships were moved to new positions. Maintenance cycles were adjusted. To any outside observer, it looked routine. Bora knew better. Every order she gave had a hidden purpose. Humanity was going to war even if they didn't know it yet. On Luna, Dr. Hyunwoo sat in his laboratory surrounded by alien technology. The research station had been built with Council assistance. Every power conduit, every computer system, every environmental control used technology shared by Earth's galactic allies. Hyunwoo had spent 10 years studying these systems. He thought he understood them. After reading the Council's demands, he started looking deeper. He ran diagnostics on systems he had never questioned before. What he found made his blood run cold. Hidden in the alien technology were back doors, kill switches, remote access codes. Every human ship, every defense platform, every power station on Earth and the colonies could be shut down with a single signal from the Council. If humanity tried to fight, they would lose before the first shot was fired. Hyunwoo called Bora immediately. She listened to his report without speaking. When he finished, she asked him one question. Could he remove the back doors? Hyunwoo looked at the mountains of alien equipment around him. It would take weeks, maybe months. They had 30 days. He told her he would try. Captain Jiwon was on Earth when the news broke. She sat in a briefing room at military headquarters in Seoul, surrounded by her team. Harbinger Squad. 15 of the best soldiers humanity had ever produced. They had trained for every scenario. Alien invasion, terrorist attacks, natural disasters. They had never trained for betrayal by their own allies. The orders came down from Admiral Bora herself. Ji-won read them twice to make sure she understood. Her team was being sent to Titan, one of Saturn's moons. There was an old research station there, abandoned before first contact. It contained something important, something the Council had never touched, something that might save humanity. Ji-won didn't ask questions. She gathered her squad and headed for the shuttle bay. Whatever was on Titan, they would bring it back. That's what they did. Complete the mission, no matter the cost. In Geneva, world leaders met in emergency session. The mood was grim. Some wanted to surrender immediately. Better to lose their independence than start a war they couldn't win. Others demanded immediate military action. Nobody could make humanity kneel, they said. Better to die fighting. Tae-yang, freshly returned from the council chamber, spoke last. His voice was tired but firm. Surrender was not an option. Immediate war was suicide. They needed a third path, buy time, appear to cooperate while preparing to resist. Let the council think humanity would submit. Meanwhile, remove every backdoor, rebuild every compromise system, and prepare for the fight that would inevitably come. The vote was close. The compromise won by a single vote. Humanity would play along, for now. 3 days later, Ji-won's team reached Titan. The research station sat on the frozen surface, covered in frost and silent. They forced open the airlock and moved inside. Emergency power flickered on. The station's computers booted up slowly, running on systems that were 50 years old. In the main laboratory, they found what they were looking for: blueprints, designs, prototypes. Technology from humanity's first push into space before the Council had arrived. Fusion reactors built with human ingenuity, ships designed by human engineers, weapons created by human scientists. Nothing sophisticated by galactic standards, but entirely human. No alien code, no backdoors, no hidden weaknesses. Ji-won looked at the dusty equipment and smiled. This was what humanity had built when they were alone. Crude, simple, but theirs. She uploaded everything to her ship's computers and encrypted the files. Then she and her team headed back to Earth. 27 days remained until the Council's deadline. Across the solar system, humans worked in secret. Hyunwoo's teams dismantled alien technology piece by piece. Bora's fleet reorganized, abandoning compromised ships and concentrating forces. Engineers studied the old blueprints from Titan, looking for ways to build new ships that the Council couldn't control. On the surface, humanity appeared to cooperate. Diplomatic messages flowed between Earth and the Council. Tae-yang sent regular updates on compliance efforts. The Council saw what they expected to see: a young species accepting their proper place in the galactic order. They were wrong. Humanity was not accepting anything. They were preparing. Every day brought new progress. Systems were purged. Old designs were improved. Weapons were built. Soldiers trained. The clock counted down to confrontation. In her quarters aboard the Sol, Bora looked at tactical displays showing the solar system. Red markers indicated Council monitoring stations. Blue markers showed human defensive positions. The numbers looked bad, but numbers didn't tell the whole story. The Council expected compliance. They were preparing for a police action, not a war. That mistake would cost them dearly. Tae-yang sent one final message to his contacts in the Council. Some species had voted against humanity's restriction. A few genuinely cared. He thanked them for their support. He told them what was coming. He urged them to stay neutral when the fighting started. Some promised they would. Others cut communication immediately. Tae-yang expected nothing less. The 30-day deadline approached like a storm on the horizon. Humanity stood at the edge of war. They were outnumbered, outgunned, technologically inferior. By every logical measure, they were going to lose. But humans had something the Council didn't understand. Something that couldn't be measured in ships or weapons or technological advancement. They had stubbornness. They had pride. They had 37 years of betrayed trust turning into cold fury. The Council had made one fatal mistake. They had assumed humanity would behave like every other species they had ever dominated. Accept the collar, bow the head, submit. They were about to learn that humans don't submit. They adapt. They overcome. They fight. The betrayal was complete. The trap was set. The Council fleet was coming. Humanity was ready. 23 days remained. The countdown felt like a weight pressing on every human in the solar system. On Mars, engineer Dae-jung stood in the massive shipyard built into Olympus Mons. The facility stretched for kilometers underground, hidden from orbital sensors. Red Martian dust covered everything outside. Inside, workers moved with desperate purpose. Dae-jung looked at the blueprints Ji-won's team had recovered from Titan. Old Earth technology. 50-year-old designs. Compared to the sleek alien ships humanity had been building with Council help, these looked primitive, blocky, inefficient, ugly, but they were human. Every circuit, every reactor, every weapon system, no alien code hidden in the software, no secret backdoors in the hardware. These ships would be slow. They would be crude. But they would be theirs. Dae-jung made modifications to the old designs. Modern materials, better power distribution, improved weapons mounts. He kept the core technology purely human while adding 40 years of engineering knowledge. The result was something new, something the galaxy had never seen. A warship built by humans for humans to fight for humanity's survival. He called it the Defiant class. The name felt right. Construction began immediately. 3 shifts, 24 hours, no breaks. Workers welded hull plates while designers still finalized weapon systems. Engineers installed reactors before the shielding was complete. It was chaos. It was dangerous. It was the only way. Dae-jung barely slept. He moved through the shipyard like a ghost, solving problems, making decisions, pushing his teams harder. People collapsed from exhaustion. He sent them to medical, then found replacements. The deadline didn't care about fatigue. The council wouldn't wait because humans were tired. 17 days before the deadline, the first Defiant-class destroyer was complete. Dae-jung stood in the observation gallery, watching the ugly ship float in the underground hangar. It looked wrong. The hull plating was uneven. Weapon pods jutted out at odd angles. Exposed conduits ran along the exterior because there wasn't time to hide them properly. He loved it. Lieutenant Yuna arrived on Mars to test the ship. She was young, only 28, but she had logged more combat flight hours than pilots twice her age. Border patrol missions, pirate encounters, training exercises with alien allies who were now enemies. She knew how to fly. She knew how to fight. She just hoped this strange new ship would let her do both. The first test flight was rough. The engines vibrated badly. The navigation system glitched twice. The weapons targeting kept losing lock. Yuna brought the ship back to the hangar and gave Dae-jung a long list of problems. He fixed them in 6 hours. She flew again. More problems. More fixes. They repeated this dance for 3 days. Each flight got better. The ship stopped fighting her. She learned its quirks. It learned hers. By the 4th day, Yuna was pulling maneuvers that should have been impossible. The Defiant-class destroyer was slower than Council ships, but it was tougher, meaner, more willing to take damage and keep fighting. Yuna named her ship the Liberty. Dae-jung approved. They began building more. On Luna, Dr. Hyunwoo worked a different kind of miracle. His teams tore apart alien technology with surgical precision. Every power grid, every computer system, every communication relay. They found backdoors everywhere. Some were obvious once you knew to look. Others were hidden so deep that finding them felt like archaeological excavation. The worst discovery came on day 12. Hyunwoo found backdoors in the neural interface systems many humans used. Millions of people had alien technology literally wired into their brains. If the Council activated those backdoors, they could disable or kill those people with a signal. Hyunwoo stared at the data and felt sick. There was no time to remove the implants safely. Instead, Hyunwoo designed a patch. A piece of human-made software that would block the Council's kill codes. It wasn't perfect. Some people might still be vulnerable, but it was better than doing nothing. The patch went out to every human settlement in the solar system. Installation was mandatory. A few people refused, claiming it violated their rights. Hyunwoo didn't have time to argue. He had Admiral Bora send soldiers to enforce compliance. This was war. Privacy came second to survival. Bora faced her own impossible choices. The human defense fleet consisted of 137 ships. Most used Council-provided technology. Hyunwoo told her that 62 ships were too compromised to save. The backdoors ran too deep. The systems were too integrated. Cleaning them would take months. She made the hardest call of her career. Those 62 ships would be abandoned. Crews would be reassigned to vessels that could be saved. Captains protested. Some refused. They had commanded those ships for years. They wouldn't leave them behind. Bora understood their pain. She gave them a direct order anyway. Abandon ship or face court-martial. Most complied. 3 captains had to be forcibly removed by security teams. Bora watched through her office window as the compromised ships drifted in formation, empty and dark. 62 warships, thousands of years of combined service, all rendered useless by hidden code written into their cores. She pulled them into high orbit above Earth, where they could be used as decoys. The Council would see a fleet and might hesitate. They wouldn't know those ships were abandoned. Every advantage mattered. 15 days before the deadline, something unexpected happened. Taeyang received a coded message from Speaker Malthek of the Azurian species. The Azurians had voted against humanity's restrictions. Now Malthek was offering more than sympathy. He was offering intelligence. The message contained detailed information about the Council's enforcement fleet. Ship types, commanders, tactical doctrines, supply lines. Malthek was risking everything by sending this. If the Council discovered his betrayal, his entire species could face consequences. But the information was priceless. Taeyang learned that the Council was sending only 200 ships. A police force, not an invasion fleet. They expected token resistance at most. The mission commander was Grand Admiral Veloth, a war hero who had never lost a battle. He was overconfident, arrogant. He believed humanity would surrender at the first show of force. Taeyang shared this intelligence with Bora. They could use that arrogance. Let the Council come expecting an easy victory. Hit them with everything humanity had. Make them pay for every kilometer of space. Turn confidence into coffins. 10 days before the deadline, humanity held a war council. Leaders from Earth, Mars, Luna, and the asteroid colonies gathered in a secure bunker, deep beneath Geneva. The mood was grim. Everyone understood what was coming. Many wouldn't survive. Bora presented the military situation, 17 operational warships against 200. The math was brutal. But she had a plan. The asteroid belt would become the front line. Mass drivers could launch kinetic strikes. Mining stations could be converted into weapon platforms. Nuclear weapons could be seeded along likely approach vectors. Make space itself hostile. Force the enemy to bleed for every meter. Daejung reported on ship construction. 3 Defiant-class destroyers were complete. 7 more were in various stages of assembly. They wouldn't be pretty, but they would fight. Each one was a middle finger to the Council's assumption that humans couldn't build their own warships. Hyunwoo explained his work removing back doors. The critical systems were clean. The fleet was secure, but he had found something else. Something that might change everything. He had reverse-engineered the Council's faster-than-light technology. He understood how it worked, and he knew how to break it. The room went silent. Hyunwoo explained his idea. A resonance weapon that would overload enemy FTL drives. It would only work once. The Council would adapt immediately. But for one crucial moment, their ships would be vulnerable. Dead in space. Shields flickering. If humanity could coordinate a strike during that window, they might even the odds. The cost? Building the weapon would drain Earth's entire power grid. If something went wrong, the feedback could devastate the planet. It was an insane risk, but the alternative was certain defeat. The vote was unanimous. Build the weapon. 5 days before the deadline, Taeyang sent a message to every species in the galaxy. Not through official channels. Through backdoors and black markets and smuggler networks. The message was simple. Watch what happens in the Sol system. See how the Council treats species who ask for equality. Remember this when they come for you. The message spread like fire. Within hours, it reached 1,000 worlds. The Council tried to suppress it. They failed. Too many species had their own doubts. Too many had suffered under Council rule. Humanity's defiance gave them hope. 3 days before the deadline, Jiwon trained with the new soldiers who would crew the Defiant-class ships. Most were young. Too young. They should have been starting careers, raising families, living peaceful lives. Instead, they were preparing to die in the void. She taught them everything she knew. How to fight when outnumbered. How to keep moving when exhausted. How to push through fear. She told them the truth. Many wouldn't come home, but they would make the enemy remember humanity's name. They listened. They learned. They were ready. One day before the deadline, Bora addressed the entire human defense force. Her message was broadcast to every ship, every station, every military installation in the solar system. She didn't give them false hope. She didn't pretend this would be easy. Grand Admiral Veloth stood on the command deck of his flagship, watching the blue marble of Earth grow larger on the screens. 200 warships spread out behind him in perfect formation. The Iron Mandate fleet, the finest military force in the galaxy. He had commanded these ships in 12 campaigns across 6 sectors.
He had never lost. This mission should be his easiest.
Accept humanity's surrender. Place oversight stations in orbit. Return to Council space, simple, clean. A footnote in his long career. He sent the standard hail. All frequencies. All languages. The message was polite but firm. Humanity had 30 minutes to acknowledge and begin surrender protocols. After that, the fleet would advance and enforce compliance. The response was silence. Veloth frowned. Perhaps the humans were having technical difficulties. Perhaps they needed time to coordinate their response. He waited. 1 hour passed, then 2, then 3. His communications officers confirmed the signals were getting through. Earth was receiving his hails. They simply weren't answering. 6 hours after his arrival, Veloth's patience wore thin. He ordered the fleet to advance slowly toward Earth. If the humans wouldn't talk, maybe a show of force would motivate them. Then humanity spoke. Commander Yunji sat in a hidden communications station carved into an asteroid. Her hands were steady on the controls, but her heart hammered. She had practiced the message 100 times. Now she had to deliver it live. To the entire galaxy, she opened the channel. All frequencies. All languages. Her voice went out to every ship in Veloth's fleet. To the council chamber. To 1,000 worlds. She spoke clearly without hesitation. To the Galactic Council and its enforcement fleet. You came to our home expecting our surrender. You will not receive it. You tried to control us with gifts that were chains. We have broken those chains. You believed us weak because we are young. You will learn otherwise. This is not a negotiation. This is notice. Leave our system within 24 hours or we will teach you why apex predators evolved on Earth. We are humanity. We do not kneel. We do not break. Try to make us and we will remake the galaxy in ways you cannot imagine. The choice is yours. The consequences will be ours to deliver one day. You have been warned. The transmission ended. Yunji sat back, breathing hard. She had just declared war on behalf of her entire species. There was no going back now. Veloth listened to the message with growing disbelief. An ultimatum? From humans? These primitive creatures who had barely learned to cross their own solar system were threatening him. Threatening the council? His first reaction was amusement. Then anger. The council had sent him to accept a surrender. The humans were offering war instead. This insult could not stand. He would crush these upstarts and make an example that would echo across the galaxy for centuries. He ignored the ultimatum and ordered the fleet to advance. 24 hours? He would be in Earth orbit in 6. The Iron Mandate fleet pushed deeper into the solar system. Veloth had fought in asteroid fields before. Standard procedure. Scan for hidden installations. Maintain formation. Advance steadily. Nothing here should challenge his fleet. Then the asteroid belt lit up. Thousands of radar signatures appeared simultaneously. Mining stations activated weapons. Automated platforms powered up. Hidden mass drivers locked onto targets. The belt had been transformed into a defensive fortress spanning millions of kilometers. Veloth barely had time to register the threat before the first strikes hit. Tungsten rods, simple kinetic weapons, accelerated to devastating speeds by mass drivers that had once launched mining ore. No advanced technology, no exotic physics, just mass and velocity. The rods punched through shields like they weren't there. 3 council destroyers died in the first 30 seconds. Their hulls split open, atmosphere vented. The ships tumbled, dead in space. Veloth shouted orders. Evasive maneuvers. Return fire. Find the launch sites. But the humans had turned the entire asteroid belt into a weapon. Every rock could hide a mass driver. Every mining station could launch kinetic strikes. The council fleet found itself fighting terrain as much as enemies. Admiral Bora watched from her command center deep inside Ceres. Displays showed the battle unfolding. Council ships taking damage. Formations breaking. Confusion spreading. Everything was going according to plan. Her 17 operational warships remained hidden. Let the enemy bleed against the fixed defenses first. Let them waste ammunition on automated platforms. Let them grow frustrated and angry. Angry enemies made mistakes. She gave the order to activate Phase 2. Nuclear mines deployed over the past 30 days began drifting into the Council fleet's path. Old technology, crude by galactic standards. But nuclear weapons didn't care about sophistication. They cared about releasing energy. Lots of it. 7 mines detonated near Council cruisers. The explosions weren't powerful enough to destroy the ships, but they didn't need to be. The electromagnetic pulses disrupted shields, disabled sensors, created chaos. The Council fleet slowed, becoming cautious. Perfect. Caution meant fear. Fear meant respect. Captain G1 led her squadron out of hiding. 10 Defiant-class destroyers. Ugly, crude ships that shouldn't have been able to compete with Council technology. But they weren't trying to win fair fights. They were ambush predators. Her squadron emerged from behind a large asteroid accelerating hard. Target: an isolated Council frigate that had separated from the main fleet. G1's ship, the Liberty, led the charge. Weapons locked, distance closing. The frigate detected them too late. Human railguns opened fire. Solid projectiles at hypersonic speeds. The frigate's shields absorbed some hits. Others got through. Hull breaches appeared. The frigate tried to turn to bring its own weapons to bear. Too slow. G1's squadron hammered the frigate from 3 sides. Overwhelming firepower at close range. The ship's reactor went critical. The explosion lit up the asteroid field. G1's squadron was already gone, disappearing back into the rocks before the Council fleet could respond. Guerrilla warfare. Hit and run. Strike from hiding, then vanish. The Council had trained to fight honorable battles. Ship to ship. Formation against formation. This wasn't that kind of fight. Veloth watched another ship die and felt cold fury settle in his chest. The humans were using every dirty trick imaginable. Ambushes, mines, ancient weapons that shouldn't have been effective against modern shields. They were fighting like pirates, like terrorists, like creatures with no honor. But they were winning. His fleet had lost 14 ships. 14. In 6 hours of combat. Against a species that barely had a navy, the Council would be furious. His reputation was being shredded with every human victory. He considered withdrawing, regrouping, coming back with reinforcements. But that would mean admitting failure, admitting that humans had defeated him. He couldn't do that. Wouldn't do that. He would push through this asteroid field and burn Earth to ash if necessary. Veloth ordered the fleet to advance. Full speed. Ignore the mines. Ignore the mass drivers. Break through the defensive line and reach Earth. Once there, humanity would have nowhere to hide. Tae-Yang sat in his hidden bunker, watching the battle unfold on tactical displays. He had bypassed every communication block the Council tried to throw up. Footage of the battle was streaming to 1,000 worlds in real time. The galaxy was watching. They were seeing the truth. The Council had come to crush humanity. Humanity was fighting back. Council ships were dying. The invincible Iron Mandate fleet was bleeding. And humans were doing it with technology the Council had dismissed as primitive. Tae-Yang added his own commentary to the broadcast. He explained every dirty trick, every improvisation, every moment where human creativity overcame alien technology. He made it clear this wasn't about humans being special. It was about refusing to give up. Any species could do what humanity was doing. If they had the courage, the message resonated. On 74 worlds, people watched and wondered. If humans could stand up to the Council, why couldn't they? The battle raged for 3 days. The Council fleet pushed deeper into the system. More ships died, on both sides. Human automated platforms were destroyed. Mass drivers were silenced. The defensive line held, but barely. Bora committed more of her hidden fleet. 18 destroyers now, fighting the same guerrilla war. Ambush, strike, vanish. The Council adapted slowly. They started traveling in tighter formations, watching their flanks, scanning constantly. But every adaptation cost them time and ships. Humanity was losing. The math was inevitable. But they were making the Council pay for every meter. That was the goal. Make victory so expensive that the Council would question whether it was worth the cost. On day 4, Veloth's fleet broke through the asteroid belt. 173 ships remained from the original 200. 27 destroyed by a species that shouldn't have been able to fight back. The losses were catastrophic, but he had won. Earth lay ahead, undefended. Veloth ordered the fleet to form up for the final push. In 6 hours, they would be in Earth orbit. Humanity's defiance would end. He would personally oversee the occupation, make sure these upstarts learned their lesson. Then his sensors detected something. Energy readings near Luna, massive power spike, building fast. What were the humans doing? Dr. Hyunwoo watched his creation power up. The equalizer, months of work, humanity's last desperate gamble. 90 seconds. That was all humanity had. Bora watched the countdown on her display. The equalizer had done its job. Council ships drifted helpless, their systems rebooting, but they would recover. When they did, humanity's brief advantage would vanish. Her fleet accelerated toward the crippled enemy. 18 human destroyers against 173 Council warships. The math still looked terrible. But for 90 seconds, those Council ships couldn't shoot back. That changed everything. The human fleet opened fire at maximum range, railguns, missiles, every weapon they had. The projectiles crossed the void and slammed into Council ships. Without shields, the attacks punched through hulls like paper. Atmosphere vented. Reactors exploded. Ships died. 75 seconds. Council systems started coming back online. Shields flickered. Weapons charged. But they were scattered, disorganized. The human fleet kept firing, kept moving, kept killing. 60 seconds. More Council ships died. Their formations were broken. Some tried to retreat, others tried to fight. The confusion was as deadly as the human weapons. 45 seconds. The Council fleet began to recover. Shields stabilized. Return fire started. A human destroyer took a direct hit and exploded. Then another. The brief window of vulnerability was closing. 30 seconds. The battle became chaos. Ships collided. Point-blank weapons fire. Fighter craft swarming like angry bees. Human pilots rammed Council cruisers in suicide attacks. Ancient human fighters armed with nothing but determination and explosives. 10 seconds. G1's squadron targeted Veloth's flagship. The massive dreadnought was recovering faster than other ships. Its shields were almost back to full strength. If they didn't stop it now, the flagship would rally the Council fleet and turn the battle zero. The 90 seconds ended. Council ships were fully operational again. But the damage was done. 31 enemy warships destroyed. Another 17 crippled. The Iron Mandate fleet had been gutted, but humanity had paid too. 7 destroyers destroyed. Thousands dead. Lieutenant Yuna, who had tested the first Defiant-class ship, died when her vessel took a direct hit to the reactor. She never saw the explosion. Bora watched the indicator blink out and felt something cold settle in her chest. Ji-Wan brought her ship alongside Veloth's flagship. This close, she could see damage on the massive vessel. Armor plating blown away, weapons destroyed, but it was still fighting. Still dangerous. She made a decision. Boarding action. Her team had trained for this. Close assault, ship to ship. Most dangerous thing you could do in space combat. But if they could take the flagship, kill Veloth, the Council fleet might break. She assembled Harbinger Squad. 15 soldiers. The best humanity had. They sealed their suits and moved to the airlock. The Liberty would dock with the flagship. They would cut through the hull. They would find Veloth. They would end this. The docking was violent. Metal screamed. Emergency seals failed. Ji-Wan and her team cut through the flagship's hull with plasma torches. They dropped into a corridor filled with smoke and emergency lighting. Alien crew members scattered. Some fought. Harbinger Squad moved through them like a knife through water. They fought their way deeper into the ship. Corridor by corridor. Deck by deck. Ji-Wan's team started with 15 soldiers. By the time they reached the command deck, she had 6. The others had fallen. Killed or injured. She didn't stop. Couldn't stop. The mission came first. The command deck was defended by Veloth's personal guard. Elite warriors. The best the Council had. The firefight was brutal. Close range, no cover. Ji-Wan took a shot to her shoulder. Kept fighting. Another soldier fell. Then another. Ji-Wan pushed forward, her weapon empty, switching to her combat knife. She found Veloth at his command station. The Grand Admiral stood tall, his multiple arms holding weapons. He was old, experienced. He had fought in battles before humans had discovered fire. But his eyes showed something new. Fear. They fought. Veloth was skilled. Ji-won was desperate. His weapons found her twice more. She bled. She ignored it. Her knife found his throat. Veloth fell. The great admiral, undefeated in 1,000 battles, dead at the hands of a human captain who refused to quit. Ji-won collapsed against the command console. Her suit was compromised, blood floating in zero gravity. She had maybe 3 minutes before she passed out. She triggered the flagship's self-destruct, manual override, command codes she had stolen from Veloth's dying mind through her neural interface. The remaining members of Harbinger Squad dragged her back to their ship. They launched just as the flagship's reactor went critical. The explosion was massive, beautiful, terrible. The Iron Mandate's command ship, Pride of the Council Fleet, died in fire. The Council Fleet broke, without Veloth, without the flagship, without the confidence that they were fighting an easy battle. Ships started withdrawing. Some fled immediately. Others tried to maintain formation. But the spirit was gone. They had come expecting a police action. They had found a war, and they were losing. Bo-Ra ordered pursuit. Don't let them regroup. Keep hitting them. Make them run. The human fleet chased the Council ships all the way to the edge of the solar system. More Council vessels died during the retreat. By the time the survivors jumped to faster than light, the Iron Mandate fleet had been reduced to 62 ships. 200 ships had entered the Sol system. 62 escaped. Humanity had won. The cost was devastating. The battle had lasted 6 weeks. 3 million humans were dead. Mars was burning. Orbital bombardment had turned parts of the colony into glass. The terraforming that had taken decades was destroyed in hours. The Olympus Mons shipyard, where Daejung had built the first Defiant-class destroyers, was gone. A crater marked where it had been. Daejung had died in the bombardment. He had stayed until the last moment, transmitting shipyard designs to hidden locations throughout the system. His final message was simple. The knowledge survives. Keep building. Never stop. Luna had survived, but barely. The research station where Hyunwoo had built the equalizer was damaged beyond repair. Parts of the installation were open to vacuum. But Hyunwoo lived. He stood in the ruins of his laboratory and wept. Not for himself. For the millions who had died to buy humanity's freedom, Earth itself had scars. 7% of the surface was irradiated from orbital strikes. Cities were damaged. Infrastructure destroyed. But the planet lived. Humanity lived. That was what mattered. Taeyang broadcast the victory to the galaxy. He didn't celebrate. He didn't boast. He simply showed the truth. Humanity had been attacked. Humanity had fought back. Humanity had won. At terrible cost, but won nonetheless. The footage spread across 1,000 worlds. The Council tried to suppress it. They failed. Too many species wanted to see, wanted to know that the Council could be beaten. The Iron Mandate fleet, invincible for centuries, had been destroyed by a species the Council had dismissed as primitive. On 74 worlds, resistance movements began. Species that had suffered under Council rule for generations suddenly found courage. If humans could stand up, why couldn't they? The galaxy began to shift. Bo-Ra stood on the bridge of the Soul looking at Earth through the viewport. Her brother had died during the battle. He had commanded one of the Mars defense platforms. She had given the order that sacrificed him. The order that saved Earth. She would carry that weight for the rest of her life, but they had won. Against impossible odds. Against a force that should have crushed them. Humanity had proven they deserved to exist, deserved their place among the stars. Not because the Council said so. Because they had fought for it. Ji-won recovered in a medical facility on Earth. Her injuries were severe. She would never fight again. Not at full capacity. But she was alive. Most of Harbinger Squad was dead. She remembered their names. All of them. Would remember them forever. They had completed the mission. Found Veloth. Killed him. Destroyed his flagship. Broken the Council fleet. The price was everything they had. But the mission was complete. That had to be enough. The war wasn't over. The Council still existed. They still controlled most of the galaxy. But the illusion of their invincibility was shattered. Humanity had shown that they could be beaten. That was worth 3 million lives. Wasn't it? Bo-Ra didn't know. She had won the battle. Saved humanity. But at what cost? Her brother, Daejung, Yuna, thousands of soldiers, millions of civilians, all dead, all sacrificed for freedom. She stood at the memorial service on Earth. 3 million names. Every person who died in the Battle of Sol. She couldn't read them all. There were too many. But she tried. Spent hours walking past the wall of names, learning faces from photographs, ages, occupations, dreams that would never be fulfilled. Tai Yang found her there. The diplomat looked old, tired. The burden of what they had done weighed on him too. He spoke quietly. They had won, but winning felt like losing. So many dead, so much destroyed. Was this really victory? Bora didn't have an answer. She just knew that slavery would have been worse. Dying free was better than living in chains. The dead had bought humanity's future with their lives. That purchase had to matter, had to mean something. Across the solar system, humans began rebuilding. Mars would take decades to restore. Luna would be rebuilt. Earth would heal. The scars would remain, but humanity would survive. They always did. New ships were already under construction, more Defiant-class destroyers. 18 months after the Battle of Sol, Tai Yang stood before representatives from 74 species. They met in secret, far from Council space, an abandoned station orbiting a dead star. The location didn't matter. What mattered was the decision they were about to make. The Galactic Council was fracturing. Rebellions had spread across 12 sectors. Species that had submitted to Council rule for centuries were suddenly asking questions. Why should we obey? Who gave the Council authority? What happens if we say no? Humanity had shown them the answer. You fight. You resist. You pay the price, but you stay free. Now 74 species were ready to stand together, to form something new, something better, an alliance based on choice, not force. Tai Yang addressed the gathering. He spoke about humanity's struggle, the betrayal, the war, the cost. He didn't glorify it, didn't make it sound heroic. He told the truth. Freedom was expensive. It required sacrifice, but the alternative was worse. The 74 species voted unanimous. They would form the Free Species Coalition. They would stand together against the Council. They would fight for a galaxy where every species had a voice, not just the powerful, everyone. The Council's response was predictable. War. Total war. They couldn't allow this rebellion to succeed. If the Coalition won, the Council's 3,000-year rule would end. They gathered their remaining loyal species. 12 answered the call. Enough to field a massive fleet. Councillor Thex, who had betrayed humanity, led the Council's war effort. He broadcast across the galaxy. The Coalition was a threat to civilization. Humanity was a disease. Join the Council or face destruction. His message was clear. Submit or die. The galaxy split. 12 species with the Council, 74 with the Coalition. The rest stayed neutral, watching to see who would win. The Council War began. It would last 3 years. Admiral Bora commanded the human fleet. 86 warships now, all built with pure human technology, crude compared to Council vessels, but effective. She had learned lessons from the Battle of Sol. Never fight fair. Never give the enemy what they expect. Always make them pay. She taught those lessons to the Coalition. How to use terrain, how to fight when outnumbered, how to turn weaknesses into advantages. The Coalition fleet became something the galaxy had never seen. Not a traditional military force. A swarm of independent units, each fighting their own way, coordinating through necessity rather than rigid command structure. The Council kept expecting conventional battles. Fleet against fleet, formation against formation. They kept being disappointed. Coalition forces hit supply lines, raided shipyards, ambushed patrol groups, made every Council victory meaningless by ensuring they could never consolidate gains. The war ground on. Both sides bled. But the Coalition kept growing. Neutral species watched the Council struggle and wondered, if 74 species could stand against them, maybe the Council wasn't invincible after all. More species joined the Coalition. 80 species, 90, 100. Dr. Hyunwoo worked tirelessly to level the technological gap. He couldn't match Council weapons directly, but he could innovate, create new approaches. The Coalition fleet started using weapons the galaxy had never imagined. Gravity mines, biological warfare that targeted specific genetic markers, AI swarms that overwhelmed Council computer defenses. Some called his methods immoral. Hyunwoo didn't care about morality. He cared about survival. The Council had tried to enslave humanity, had killed millions, Morality was a luxury for peacetime. This was war. Captain Ji-won, recovered from her injuries, trained the next generation. She couldn't fight on the front lines anymore. Her body wouldn't let her, but she could teach. She showed young soldiers how to survive, how to fight when everything seemed hopeless, how to keep going when all you wanted was to quit. She told them about Harbinger Squad, about the soldiers who died taking Veloth's flagship. She made sure they understood. War wasn't glorious. It was necessary. There was a difference. They were fighting for something real: freedom, choice, the right to exist without bowing to anyone. 2 years into the Council War, something changed. Council-aligned species began negotiating surrenders, not because they were defeated, because they were tired. The war was costing too much. Their populations were suffering for what? To preserve a system that benefited the powerful at everyone else's expense? One by one, they made peace, signed treaties with the coalition. Some joined outright, others declared neutrality. The Council's alliance crumbled. By year 3, only 6 species still supported them, 6 against 134. The math was clear. The Council War ended not with a battle but with a trial. Councillor Thex was captured by his own people. The Vakrians, tired of suffering for his decisions, handed him to the coalition. He would face justice for his crimes. The trial was held on the Azurian homeworld. Speaker Malthek, who had helped humanity from the beginning, presided. Thex was charged with conspiracy, genocide, and crimes against peace. The evidence was overwhelming. Thex had orchestrated humanity's betrayal, had ordered attacks on civilian targets, had tried to exterminate entire species who opposed him. Ji-won attended the trial. Many expected her to demand execution. She had lost so many friends to Thex's schemes, but she surprised everyone. She spoke in his defense, not to excuse his crimes, to ensure he received a fair trial, to prove that the coalition was better than the council, that justice mattered more than revenge. Thex was convicted and sentenced to exile, life imprisonment on a remote moon alone with his thoughts. No visitors, no communication. Just time to reflect on what he had done. Death would have been mercy. This was justice. The Galactic Senate was formed in the aftermath. 821 species represented. No hierarchy. No permanent members with special privileges. Every species one vote. Decisions made by majority. Power distributed equally. The first session convened in neutral space. A new station, built specifically for this purpose. Representatives from across the galaxy gathered. Some had been enemies days before. Now they sat together working toward common goals. Admiral Bora gave the opening address. She stood before 821 species and spoke simply. Humanity didn't fight to conquer. They fought to exist. They didn't rebel to rule. They rebelled to be free. This Senate represented that principle. Power shared among all, never concentrated in the hands of a few. Let this be humanity's gift to the galaxy, she said. Not weapons, not technology, but an idea that every species deserves a voice. That might doesn't make right. That a better future is possible if we build it together. When she finished, something unprecedented happened. All 821 species rose as one, not in dominance, in respect, for the species that had changed everything, the species that refused to kneel. Tae Yang became the Senate's first speaker. He guided the body through its early challenges, writing laws, establishing protocols, resolving disputes. It wasn't easy. 821 species meant 821 different perspectives. But they made it work. Because the alternative was returning to council rule. Nobody wanted that. Years passed. Mars turned green again. The terraforming resumed. The Olympus Mons shipyard was rebuilt. Luna's research stations expanded. Earth healed. The scars remained, but they served as reminders. Never forget the cost. Never take freedom for granted. Humanity built new ships, sleek vessels incorporating both human innovation and shared technology from coalition allies, but they kept building Defiant-class destroyers too. Ugly, crude ships that reminded everyone where humanity came from, what they had overcome. New generations grew up in a different galaxy, one where the council was history, where species worked together instead of serving masters, where humans were just one voice among many, equal, free. 50 years after the Battle of Sol, a memorial was completed on Earth. 3 million names, Every person who died fighting for humanity's freedom. Bo-Ra, now old and retired, attended the dedication. Tae-Young was there. Hyunwoo, Ji-won, the survivors of humanity's darkest hour. They stood together looking at the names. So many dead. So much sacrifice. Was it worth it? Bo-Ra thought about that question often. Her brother's name was on that wall, along with millions of others. They had died for an idea, that humanity deserved to exist on their own terms. She looked at the galaxy around them. Free, democratic, imperfect, but improving. Yes, she decided, it was worth it. The price was terrible, but what they had built was priceless. Children from 1,000 worlds came to the memorial. They learned about the Battle of Sol, about humanity's refusal to surrender, about the ultimatum that changed the galaxy. The story became legend, not because humans were special, but because they proved that courage mattered more than power. Any species could do what humanity did, the children learned. Stand up, refuse to kneel. Fight for what you believe in, accept the cost, and keep going. That was the real lesson, not that humans were superior, but that determination could overcome any obstacle. Bo-Ra gave one final interview before she died. The reporter asked about the war, about the deaths, about whether she had regrets. Bo-Ra thought carefully before answering. She regretted every death, every sacrifice, every person who died under her command. But she didn't regret fighting. Given the same choice, she would do it again.